Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to our webinar today. We're excited to have Bryce Menadue from Innovia Consulting joining us today. Bryce will be presenting part 3 of his ongoing series, Hello Extensions, Your Business Central Customization. Before I pass it over to Bryce to cover this hot topic, I would like to remind you that this session is being recorded and will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone who may have an interest in the topic. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the question box and we will get them answered during our Q&A time at the end of the session. So now I will pass it over to Bryce to kick off our presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Keith. And thank you again, everybody, for joining me today in the third installment of this mini-series on extensions in Business Central. One more time, my name is Bryce Menadue. I'm a development consultant here at Innovia Consulting, Business Central and Extensions for almost 2 years now. And today we're going to be going through some more things you can do with your extensions. But before we get into that, just a quick recap for those who may have missed the first two or just want a little bit of a refresher. We're going to quick cover again what are extensions. So extensions as a whole is going to be a new programming model that Microsoft is kind of cornering us into, where we are going to be extending, literally extending or adding to the existing objects that Business Central has to offer. And all of these objects are going to be in a new format called an AL type file. And then it's all of these AL files that are compiled together to generate a single .app file, which is the extension that eventually gets uploaded to Business Central. And then what was the push for all of this? So a programming concept that's been around for many, many years is something called the OpenClosed Principle. This can be translated into open for extension, but closed modification, meaning that I can extend upon the application literally with extensions, but I do not have to directly modify the base application for it to still work. So whether my extension is installed in Business Central or not, a user can still do their job without any hindrance. So in today's demo, we're going to be kind of covering our first table extension, our first page extension, and then even our first event using a code unit and an event subscriber. Without further ado, we're going to hop over into it. So I've already have fired up the demo extension that we started from last time. We can see the page and the table that I built from last time. But today we're going to take it a little bit further, and the general scope of this modification is the customer came to me and they said, hey, we would like a Boolean or a flag or something added to the item table so that when a user tries to post a sales order, the user has to confirm or deny whether they want to proceed based on that Boolean or that flag on the item. So I said, sure thing. So to achieve this with an extension, the first thing that we're going to have to do is go ahead and add this new field to that item table. We can do that by first adding in a new folder. This is going to be called table extension. This is how we can organize all of our AL files per the object type. Within that table extension folder, we're going to go ahead and add our item table extension.al file. And then just a reminder that the naming convention of the file is something we follow uniform at Innovia, where we have the object name, the object type, and then followed with the .al file type. You press enter on that, and it's going to open up this blank file for me. And thanks to our handy dandy snippets, I can start by typing in my T table extension, and we'll see that Waldo's got a snippet for me that I can use, and if I press enter, we'll get the initial structure of this table extension. And we'll start by filling in the ID. For this demo, we'll be using the 52,000 range. If I tab on over, then I'll be prompted to fill in my table extension name. We'll just call this INBC item. We can differentiate it from the standard item table. And then lastly, we'll fill in what this table extension is extending. In this case, we're extending the item table. So at this point, we've created our first table extension, but it has no fields yet. So we'll go ahead and add in the field of ID 52,000, follow suit of the table extension ID. And we're going to give this field name, we'll call it IMVC prompt user. We'll give it a type of Boolean. And the data classification is going to be customer content. We're going to click quick fix that caption because it fills in automatically based on the field name. The user doesn't need to see the preceding IMVC. It's only for the back end. And now we've successfully just made our first table extension with a field. So now this field, 52,000, is going to be extended on the item table. And now whether you're on Business Central SaaS or you're on-prem, in SQL, in the back end of it all, this table extension, per this extension, is going to act as a completely new table in the SQL database. So meaning that every time I query the items, it's actually going to do a join between the standard item table and my now extension, table extension, IMVC item. So keep that in mind going forward, that we kind of recommend to keep your mods concise and organized and minimal extensions as possible, because you'll run into some performance issues if you have too many extensions that are causing all these joins that you don't need. Now that we've got the field added to the table, we have to find a way to display this, obviously. So just like we did with the page in the last webinar, we're going to go ahead and add a page extension because we want this to show up on the item card. We can start by giving ourselves a new folder called page extension. And then within that folder, we're going to go ahead and add the file of item card.pageextension.al. Following suit of everything else, we have the object name, object type, and then document type of, or file type of AL. Thanks again to our handy dandy snippets here. I can find my page extension snippet. So that'll fill in the structure of the page extension. For this demo purpose, we're staying in the 52,000 range, and this will be called the IMVC item card. So it is the closest it can be to the base name object that's going to extend the item card. Just like in the table extension, we now have a page extension defined. The object 52,000, the name of IMVC item card, and it's going to extend the item card. Now, in a past life, you'd be able to go into the object designer and you could place this new field wherever you wanted. But with extensions, we have to be very explicit and tell it right where we want to add this. So within this layout set of brackets here, we're going to want to tell the page extension where we're going to add our new field. So in this case, we're going to add last. There's some other options of add after, add before, add first. We want to add the last set of fields within the item grouping. So opening the item card, the item grouping is going to be the first one, or maybe the general group, if you want to call it that, of fields on that item card. And now I can finally go ahead and add my page field. See if IntelliSense helps me out here. I don't think it's going to, but this is going to be the prompt user field with the field source of prompt user. Application area is all, and then this automatically generated property is unnecessary. So now at this point, I have added my page field as the last field of the item group within the layout of this page extension. You'll see at the bottom that this actions group was automatically generated, but in this demonstration, we're not going to be adding any actions to the page. We can get rid of that unnecessary code. Go ahead and save both of these files. So at this point, we have our page extension, which is displaying the new field that we had just created on our table extension for the item. So that's great. We have our table, we have our page, but now we need the logic to handle the actual modification. So we're going to be doing this through a code unit event publisher. we're going to be making our own subscriber to one of Microsoft's predefined publishers. First thing we can go ahead and do is make a new folder, just like the rest, call this code unit. And then within that folder, we'll go ahead and put a new code unit file. We'll call this code unit events.codeunit.al. Calling this code unit events because this would be a file that I would want to hold all of my event publishers that come from a code unit. So all the hooks that I find in a code unit, which will be different than all of the hooks I find in a page or all the hooks I find in a table or all the hooks I could find in a report. This way, all the code unit quote hooks are going to be put in this file here. And then with our handy dandy snippets again, I can start typing in T code unit. And pretty simple, you just have code unit and the ID, and then the name, we'll call this code unit events. And then we can start writing our procedures. You're probably wondering, well, hey Bryce, how do you even know where these hooks are? How can you tell if there's no more development environment? Well, thanks to Microsoft, actually, if you were to go ahead and Google Business Central 15.2 download, anyone can go ahead and download the latest version of Microsoft BC. You would just have to pick the region you may want, and then you have the entire application right there. To save the 5 GB download, I've gone ahead and already done this. And we can see that now I have my Dynamics 365 BC, North American, they call it a DVD, not literally a DVD. But from within here, if I go to the applications folder, and then I navigate to the base app folder, and then I care about the source. And then from within there, you'll see a folder called base application.source. If I click within there, you'll see a whole bunch of these AL files. And there's quite a few. We're looking at 6,700 items in this folder. And this just so happens to be the entire Business Central base application source code in AL. So as a developer or anybody who's interested, what they can do is actually open up that entire folder in Visual Studio Code. You'll have to mind the 1,100 errors that are reported on the bottom, but at this point, I can browse through all of Microsoft's source code, looking at the sales order page, looking at the sales posting code unit, looking at the sales quote RDLC, and this is now how we can browse through the code and find these said hooks. From the top up, I know that in the posting routine, it starts at the sales order page. So I'd have to go to that page and I would find the action. That action would take me through a series of code units, and ultimately I would be ending at the sales post code unit file. This is kind of how the investigation happens, so we know where and what we can do with some of these hooks. But back to our extension, I've gone ahead and already found out exactly where I need to put this. So starting from the top down, to make our event subscriber, first you'll need to have this decorator called event subscriber, and that's going to take some parameters such as the object type. In this case, it's going to be a code unit, and so we put it in the code unit events code unit. The code unit ID, we're going to interpolate from this option field, and that's going to be the sales post code unit. And then in the single quotes, we have the actual call it a hook or the publisher that I'm subscribing to, and it happens to be the on, before, post lines of that code unit. The blank parameter is actually going to be the element name. The element name is not used in this scenario because it's not a specific element publisher that I'm dealing with. The element name would be used if it was a on before validate or an on after validate, where I had to explicitly define the element that I was pertaining to. So maybe on after validate event of the quantity field, but this case scenario, it's unnecessary. And then the final two parameters are going to be the skip on missing license, the skip on missing permission. I want this to execute every time, so I'm going to say false, both of those. And then after you have your decorator established, then we can start writing the actual procedure. As far as the naming convention goes of the procedure, it is completely up to you, up to the developer's discretion, what they would like to call it. For my sake, I like to call it something similar to the publisher that I'm subscribing to. So I called this procedure the on before post line subscriber for easier maintenance going forward. And then the interesting thing is you will have to have your parameters of your procedure to be the exact parameters of that published event in Microsoft's code. So if we were to go back and look at the on before post lines in the sales post code unit, it would have these identical parameters. That's the only way that this procedure, this entire extension is going to compile, is if we conform to what Microsoft says we have to, regardless if these parameters are actually used or not. And then getting into the code, we can see lines 5 and 6, I've defined my variable called item of type record item. And then within my code, I'm just going to quick find that specific item. I'm going to see if that item's prompt user Boolean is flipped on. And then if it is flipped on, then I'm going to pop open a dialog to the user and ask them if they want to proceed. And if they do not proceed, then there's going to be an error out, in turn rolling back the entire process and not let them continue the posting routine. So kind of a proof of concept. We can go and demo this and make sure this is actually working. To save time, this extension's already been published to my environment. So flipping back to Business Central, we can see I'm in the sandbox here. And if I just want to go find an item and make sure I have one item that is available for this test, we can go take a peek at the Athens desk and we can see that, oh, the prompt user before posting is turned on for my Athens desk. That's good. So now the next step would be to go to a sales order and attempt to post the sales order that contains the Athens desk. I'm just going to guess that the first sales order has what we need. And lucky days, look at that, it does. That's my Athens desk. So if we want to make sure this is working, we'll go to our posting and click post. And we just want to ship it. We don't want to invoice it right now. And then there's my pop-up message saying, are you sure you want to proceed? So based on the logic I wrote, if I click no, I should receive an error, which I did. And the description of the error is the user has stopped the posting process, which if we look back here is exactly what I wrote in that error message. Look at that, pretty slick. To show you that I did not break the posting routine for another order, we will quick go to an order that does not contain the Athens desk. We'll try this order here that has a conference table. And we're going to go ahead and post this. We will just ship it today. And it posted successfully. At this time, that is all the demo that I have for now. And I will open the floor up to any questions.
And it appears we don't have any questions for you today. So please feel free to contact us or the team at Innovia with any questions you might have. Bryce's contact details are there. Thank you, Bryce, for presenting today. And to everyone on today's webinar, or if you're watching on demand, we thank you for joining us as well. We do have a few more webinars coming up very soon. In fact, this afternoon we have Larry Sheets from Avalara presenting on sales tax play-by-play, how to tackle economic nexus with your ERP. And tomorrow, February 19th, we have Marlene Menken from Innovia Consulting presenting on what are notifications, how can they be utilized in Business Central. You can check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that website address is innovia.com/events. You can see all the listing there. And we also want to let you know that Innovia has a podcast going on, and if you have not heard it already, it's called the Innovia Conversation. We want to encourage you to listen, as Steve and Jeff have provided a great selection to us over the last year, and they do about 2 episodes a month. You can find out about all the different podcast platforms that you can listen to it on, the podcast page on our website, which is innovia.com/podcast. So check out our podcast selection and subscribe so you'll be notified when the new episodes air. We also want to remind you that our annual customer conference is coming up on May 20th and the 21st here in South Bend, Indiana at the University of Notre Dame. Contact your rep or visit our conference page where we have all the details for the conference, and that address is innovia.com/conferences. Remember, this is a free event for our customers to attend, and we would love to have you. Register now so you don't miss out on the great event. And if you check out the page today, we did release the session agenda so you can see what all the different sessions that will be available to you are. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on another Innovia webinar, and we hope that everyone has a great day.